All right, the USARA 2021 National Championships has started, and I've got Mike and Paula here. They're going to give us little insights on what the racers went through this morning.
Yeah, so things got started around 6:30. That's when all the gear dropping and picking up trackers and checking your cell phones and all that started. We did a quick pre-race brief, which Paula gave some additional details that are course specific right before they got the maps at 7. This year's a little bit different from past years in that the maps came with all the points already marked on them. Typically you'll have to plot some of those points on the map. They did not have to do this, but they only had an hour, just under an hour, to do all their route planning for the entire course. So most of that is not uncommon for races. People are used to this. You kind of do things under pressure, so that's pretty standard. The only difference is this is a national championship and there's a super competitive field, and everybody has been locked down basically to this area since 7 a.m. So everybody's kind of side-eyeing each other a little bit, wondering what the teams that they know are going to do. Because this race, we just put the video live, I think, that gives the course overview. It starts with a cloverleaf, which is one stage that has 5 different legs. And so everybody started doing, different things. And Paula can give a little bit of insight as to what they're doing right now.
Yeah, so teams were given a choice of one of 5 legs they have 5 legs that they're going to do in stage 1. They can pick and choose what they do first. So there are 2 paddle leg options. There's a single track bike option, and there is a bike to nav option, and then just a nav option. So I think they were spending that first hour really thinking about not only route planning, but what should we do first, what makes sense. The paddle, you might be looking at the lake and wondering what the conditions are going to be. Right now it's fairly calm. I think some teams were maybe worried about the wind picking up later in the day. Maybe get that paddle out of the way first. We have another location that they bike to and then do a nav section, and I think the thought there was, well, let's get that bike down. That location closes at 8 o'clock, so with a cutoff there, I think there were some teams that wanted to make sure they got that done, so some teams went up there. Some teams, I think, maybe thought about, let's get a feel for the map. What is the nav like here? So go out on that nav section first. So I think there was a lot of different decision making going on in that first hour, in addition to route planning.
Well, what do you think is might work well for them? Might trip them up in this first stage of the race with all these different options to do.
I mean, there's a little bit of the decision-making process is going to depend on the teams, because like Paula said, some teams are going to want to get into the map. They're going to want to get a chance to do it on foot, because that's the best way to kind of get a feel for the map and the detail and stuff like that. I know a couple teams went after the single track first because they're not as confident in their biking skills. They wanted to do that first, get it out of the way, and feel like they've got that thing behind them. But then you have to start considering too that you can't do a paddle next to a paddle, and you can't do leg D and leg E one right after the other. So
just because of race rules,
because
right?
Of race rules, right? So you have to split up your disciplines. So you got to keep that in mind. And then teams may not want to paddle in the dark, which means they got to paddle earlier. There's the cutoff up on E. So there's a lot of variables that they kind of had to weigh, and then based on their strengths and kind of what their preferences are strategically, they'll make their decisions and go from there. So it's going to be interesting. It's fun to have seen everybody take off in different directions, but now we're not going to know kind of who's in the lead and how it's going for like 8 or 10 hours probably.
Yeah.
And we'll start getting a feel for who's pulling away from the pack.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yep.
And the interesting thing is the teams don't know either, right? So when we're kind of doing a point-to-point sequential type event, the teams might be seeing each other and have an idea of where they're at. In this case, they don't even know what leg anybody else is on necessarily, unless they happen to see a team on their same leg. So we've got 55 teams spread out quite a bit.
Yep. So everybody at home watching probably knows way more about what's going on than the teams do.
And then we do right now anyway.
Yeah, we do, right?
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah.